Well, hello and welcome again to this episode 3 of the Provenance Trails, in which the concept is that you get a hike with me here in Bergen, Norway, where I live, and where I am the person behind the progressive rock project, eclectic musician, or I don't know. How would you describe Ozul? Perhaps you can let me know in the comments. But I am the man behind Ozul, this music project, and I'm taking you to a hike here in the vicinities of Bergen. Kind of a slow TV concept where I get to talk to you a little bit about what is Ozul, the records that have been released, and the things that I'm working on right now. So today, you know, the drill is I have defined some themes for each hike. Have asked the good old artificial intelligence to prepare for me some questions, which I have sent to myself. Here they are. So let's open them. And the subject or the main subject for today, the main theme, is the second record, because last time I was hiking here with you, I was speaking about the first record, Provenance. So today I'm going to talk about the second record, which is called Man on the Shore. So let's see what the good AI has prepared for me to talk to you today. And thank you for being here. Hope you can watch till the end, because if everything goes to plan, I'm going to reveal something that might be interesting for you who have followed me and my music. There will be an announcement at the end of this trail, so bear with me. Let's see, what is the story of the record Man on the Shore? What was it that inspired the album? Yes. Well, you know, my real job, what pays the bills, is working in the film and video industry. So I'm really a director and screenwriter, and my main job has been focused on documentaries, so non-fiction video work. So I like to read the news, and sometimes news can be an inspiring source of material, and this is exactly what happened when I was working with some demos for record number 2 for Ozul. I had several demos, different kind of moods and tempos and material, but I didn't have anything to kind of tie them together. And then all of a sudden I read this news from the national broadcaster here in Norway, and it was kind of a very stark news about how the body of an unknown man was found by a farmer deep in the fjord. He found this body floating, and the news told how the police was contacted, and the police tried everything they could to find who this guy was. They even tried to search for international records of people missing, but no matter how they tried, they couldn't find who this guy was. The newspaper described also what happens when you find a body and you cannot find the identity of that person, which was fascinating and bleak reading, because what happens here in Norway is that the state is obliged to provide a a dignified but very anonym burial of this person who nobody knows who he was. And so it's a rather neutral funeral burial sponsored by the Norwegian state, and this guy was buried on a grave with the name Nomen nescio, or nescio, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Nomen nescio, which it's a Latin phrase that literally means I do not know the name. So it's quite that news clipping made an impression, and I remember spending nights thinking about it, thinking about who was this guy, what happened to him, the whole idea of having the story of a person being erased from the earth and being buried like that. Nobody missed him. Nobody came to the funeral. The hopes, dreams, the story of this life completely erased, forgotten from the earth. Cheerful stuff, right? But you know how it is. Sometimes those kind of stories can inspire you to something. And I got the idea, suddenly, one day, why don't I use that story as the overarching concept for Man on the Shore, the story of this guy. What could have happened to him? And at the same time where I had got that idea, I also remember that I've just finished my documentary, The Bothersome Father, which is a documentary that deals with the tragedy of parental alienation and how a lot of parents lose contact with their children after a divorce. So I kind of got the idea to tie those things together and make a fictional story of this guy having to deal with that kind of problem of losing contact with their children, like being the story that pushed him to end his own life after trying and trying and trying but failing to keep contact with his child. That fictional story became the overarching concept for Man on the Shore. So the story of Man on the Shore is the story of this guy leading to him ending his own life and his body being washed to the shores of Norway, where nobody could find his identity. So that's the concept of the second record. Let's see. The AI asking, speak about the meaning behind the Falling Man artwork. Yeah, the cover of Man on the Shore is this barren shore, cliffs, and the figure of this guy falling. And it's quite straightforward. It's the moment in which this guy, after all the grief, attempts and failure to be able to keep contact with his child and being erased from everything in his life, cannot manage to cope and is taking his own life. So is quite direct and, in my opinion, stark cover. It doesn't attempt to be metaphorical at all. It is quite direct about the brutality of the tragedy of the story of this guy. So that's the cover. Let's see, what is the next question? Speak about the music video. Yes! Did you know that I make all the music videos for Ozul? So Man on the Shore has a rather, I would say, cinematic music video. You can find it here in the YouTube channel. I don't know if you have seen it. If you haven't, give it a try. That video, it's kind of a collection of snapshots and images that are tied exactly to that. A guy at this crossroads after having tried, because that's the ending track of the record. So during the record, so I've made these songs that tell kind of snapshots about different parts of that struggle of this father from being erased, trying to not be erased, trying to talk to the authorities, the legal system, to help him. But this track, the ending track that has this cinematic music video, is kind of the culmination of everything. So in that video you can see a lot of these moments, like memories he has of his children in front of the waves, and kind of those images of the children in front of the ocean, the lighthouse, the abandoned lighthouse, which is featured there in the drone shots, the oceans, the waves. He was going to drown and be found deep inside the fjord. So the music video, check it out. I tried to visually and metaphorically kind of tie a lot of the lyrics and the elements of the story so that it would make sense to you. Let's see. Deconstruct the sound design or influences of the title track Man on the Shore. Oh Jesus. I think that at the moment that track was rather inspired by Steven Wilson's discography, when I got the idea of following this hunch of tying the whole concept album to this news article. I immediately also remembered how Steven Wilson did something similar with Hand Cannot Erase. So in some sense, that was a part of the inspiration. The sound design, I think at that moment, there was something very alluring. A record that I had been listening a lot several years prior was Magnolia by the Pineapple Thief, and there is something about the sound of that record that I found rather inspiring. So I don't know if you could make it, but there's a lot of the elements of kind of that sound, the type of guitar playing, but as well, of course, for me, it has been also a source of inspiration, the latest Catatonia albums, which also kind of inspired or informed some of the decisions of how that title track became sonically. But of course, you always want to try to make it your own, or try to not make it too alike. But yeah, those were some of the influences for the sound design of that record. Okay, next question. I hope that made some sense. Why there's so little hope in the music of this album? Little hope. Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's something about this record, and you know, when you are an artist, there are definitely some things about yourself that make it through the art, and I think that lack of hope in the lyrics and in the whole outcome of the whole concept of Man on the Shore, it speaks or speaks a lot, actually, not a little bit. It speaks a lot about my own personality. I am a guy that I'd rather be told the truth, you know, direct, brutally, than to live thinking that things are okay or things are in a certain way, but them being a lie. That's kind of important for me. It is a little bit the same about, you know, life in general, or how to understand the world. I am a person that likes to think of himself as a realist. I am not religious at all. I am more fond of science and nature, which is why these hikes are also so important for me, because this is kind of where my spiritual side can be manifested. It's not metaphysical. It's not a ghost in the sky. It's stuff. It's material, but it's enormous. It's the universe. But anyways, the lack of hope in Man on the Shore, it's anchored in that realism, in the definite nature of the tragedy of some lives. You know, I don't think that the universe cares about us in any way, and for some people, life is a real tragedy. There is no need for me to sugarcoat that fact, and the mystery of what happened to this guy in Man on the Shore kind of made it for me important to convey that tragedy and not sugarcoat it, not try to make an ending that, oh, but perhaps he lived, or perhaps things were going to be better. I am a realist, and I thought that Man on the Shore should serve the hard, bleak tragedy of this guy. So that's why. The one lyric, see, AI is asking, is there a lyric that haunts you from the record? Oh, bloody hell. That's a hard question, because, to be honest, it's been a while. I don't listen to my records. You know, it takes so long time to make them. It's so when you're done with them, you're kind of done with them for good. It's not something that I listen to. It's not a particular lyric, but the concept of the song. There's a song in Man on the Shore that is called "How Could I?" ? And the concept of that song is that this guy is asking to nobody. He's asking in his despair to himself, to the universe, to whatever he believed in. He's asking, how is he supposed to implement this advice that he's getting from the lawyers, from his friends, from psychologists. Everyone is telling him, you know, you have to let it go. And that kind of advice many of us have been given in different situations in our lives, you know, let it go. It's a well-meant advice. But for this guy, I remember trying to get into the psychology of this guy, and that song is about asking, how do you want me? How can I be able to forget and let go of my own child? It's quite a hard task to do. And check out that track and let me know what you think in the comments, because that track is about that. How could I do what they ask me to when I've seen you, my little child, being born. Nice place here in Norway. We have in the forest several of these places in which you can come and fire some wood and grill some sausages, and the kids can come and play. It's one of the very beautiful things about living here in Norway, that the forest, the mountains, they belong to everyone. And not only that, but they are actually used by a lot of people. which is great. All right, rambling continues. Thank you for being here. But I hope that these trails also give you a chance to kind of stop a little bit from the all fast-paced content everywhere, and that perhaps these slow, meandering wanderings of this guy speaking about the music might give you some value. We'll see. You let me know. Was there something about this album that was significant for Ozul? Well, the significance was that after I'd done Provenance, as I spoke a little bit about this on the last episode number 2, but Provenance was in many ways an experiment for me to see, can I pull off making a whole record? Would some people be interested in listening to the record? And the answer to those things was yes. Of course, it's not like Provenance was a huge success, but for me it was a huge success in the sense that I'd managed to make the record, finish it, and that some people listened. Some of you listened, and for that I am eternally grateful. So, Man on the Shore, in a way, was an important step for me to not, this time around, it was not going to be about experimenting or wondering if I was able to pull it off. But it was the first time in which I kind of set out to make a record that at least in the sense of its concept throughout the songs was going to be a bit more, not a bit more, much more planned. The idea of making a concept record and making every song like a scene from a movie telling the story was a much more planned record. And that takes me mid in this bloody hill, which is quite steep. Here is the announcement and the end of this trail now, because I am making a new record. If you follow me on Instagram and stuff like that, you know that I've been publishing, that I've been working on a new record. But here is the announcement for you. I am making not only one record, but 2 records. And those records, the concept of those 2 is tied to the story of Man on the Shore. Again, so Man on the Shore and these 2 new records that Ozul will be releasing, it's going to be a trilogy. 3 records that span quite a big story. So the new record that I will be releasing, you have Man on the Shore in the middle, which is released, and I will be releasing 2 more records, and the first record is going to be a prequel of Man on the Shore. What does that mean? Well, the first record that I'm going to release is going to tell the story of what happened even earlier in the life of this fictional character that ended up taking his own life on Man on the Shore. But we go even further back in time in this record. And the title of that record is Stillborn Hope Volume 1. And the other record is going to be called Stillborn Hope Volume 2. And that is going to be the sequel of Man on the Shore, which is not going to deal with the fictional character from Man on the Shore, but is going to deal with the story of his son, of what happened to him as a grown-up man. So that was the announcement. 2 more records. Stillborn Hope Volume 1, Stillborn Hope Volume 2, and those being a part of a trilogy. Stillborn Hope Volume 1, Man on the Shore, and Stillborn Hope Volume 2. So, let me know if you think that that sounds like a good idea. And if it sounds like a bad idea, too bad, because I'm doing it anyway. Thank you again for being patient and being with me on these hikes. See ya.